6 developers compete to make the best video game for $3,000. Welcome to the Blackthorn Brothers Game Dev Competition. Each week, a panel of judges will play each game and come to the very hard decision of which 2 developers to brutally eliminate. Other devs will move on to the next week of the competition. Of course, there's going to be drama, bursts of wild creativity, and terrible twists. They're going to push these 6 developers to their absolute limits. You'll all need to base your projects on a theme, and the theme for this competition is metamorphosis.
Oh, metamorphosis. That's a good one. First thing that comes to mind is bugs.
Metamorphosis, a change of the form or nature by natural and supernatural means. I don't know about y'all, but I have absolutely no idea what I'm gonna do.
Metamorphosis.
I immediately imagine bugs or tentacle monsters consuming things to move on to different phases of their life cycles.
Rather than a being itself going through metamorphosis, the world going through a metamorphosis.
It's gonna be a tough challenge, but the one I feel most scared about is LazyTea Studios.
He's so talented at creating these beautiful 2D games, and most of us will probably be making our games in 3D, so he has the biggest chance to stand out.
I'm a little bit worried about Cowsins.
He's made an FPS engine, so that's kind of scary. That seems kind of complicated.
I definitely think Skyline is going to get eliminated first. He is using the Unreal Engine. I'm using Unreal Engine. We can't have 2 of us.
NerdChomp, I am now your biggest hater for the week.
But when it comes to the devs that I think are gonna get eliminated, I mean, I'm just gonna leave it up to chance. Well.
6 developers, only 1 winner. Let's begin with week 1, the quarterfinals.
So my idea for this game is going to be essentially, what if you merge the factory building from Satisfactory with the combat and player evolution of Vampire Survivors? So I started off by making a character state machine, and I plugged in all the animations for the directions using a blend tree. I then made a weapon script that allowed me to shoot wherever my cursor was pointing. Unlike Vampire Survivors, I wanted a bit more player urgency in the combat, and to give you a sense that you had a bit more control. Especially with the other side of this game being a factory builder, which gives you complete control, it made sense. I then went on to make the machine logic and added a game boundary. And at this point, we had a basic core loop for the factory part of it anyway. I made a script that handled the logic behind the very thing we are protecting. I'm calling it the protoform. It serves to onboard the player to the game and teach you how to gather the resources and craft items, all while giving you a bit of a story. The TLDR is you wake up with no memory and this machine in front of you. It gives you an ultimatum. Protect it and provide it with the upgrades it needs to undergo metamorphosis, and you too will gain power. Naturally, we need things to use all our newly found power and guns against, so I made it such that every night, waves of increasingly difficult enemies appear from the woods. If I do pass through to the next stage, I'm going to go absolutely ham with the different upgrades and factory buildings. I'll also be adding automation, so things like conveyor belts and all that kind of stuff, so you can automate a lot of the building processes. I'll be adding upgrades and passive abilities that you can use during combat, just like in Vampire Survivors, and a bunch of weapons to choose from as well. I'll also add a whole extra area to the map to explore, just in the north, that will offer a boss fight. Killing the boss will provide you an item that allows the protoform to metamorphose into its first evolution, as well as some NPCs to expand the story of the game a little bit. And naturally, there will be a lot more enemies and combat variation. I really hope the demo that I've made so far shows the potential for a fun experience, even if the gameplay doesn't go all that deep at the moment, just as it took so long to make all the actual systems themselves. But hopefully I'll see you all next week.
After hearing the theme, I instantly knew that I wanted to create a game where the main character slowly turns into a Cthulhu-like monster throughout the game. By Wednesday, I had a fully working tentacle grab ability that would take the enemies into the air and explode them to consume their soul. I then worked on making the environment very dark and added reflections as well as thick fog to make it look cooler. Going along with the Cthulhu monster aesthetics, I made the game action take place on an oil rig in the middle of the ocean. Another thing which made the game even faster was the smash ability. You could jump high into the air and then land on a group of enemies, basically evaporating them. Next up, I added the tutorial, which along with the videos, in my opinion, turned out great. I leave this update with the intro cinematic I've added on the last day, showing the precise moment your character lost its soul to the evil ocean spirit. There's so many things I still want to add to the game, like mutation mechanic. So I'm just going to hope that judges like the game and I can do it in the next round. See ya.
As I am a uni student and this is Christmas break, I had quite a bit of time on my hands, so I decided my Metamorphosis game would centre around an experiment performed in a high security facility, codenamed Proteus. You wake up, locked in a cryo chamber, where they have been experimenting on you, but one of the scientists mistakenly takes you as unconscious. This is when you break free, morphing into his form and gaining ID access to the whole facility. Unfortunately though, your powers only last for a short amount of time, before you morph back into your old form. And scientists aren't the only people in here. To escape, you have to gain access to the most secure parts of the facilities by picking up keycards, morphing into the high access level guards, and completing lots of puzzles. I've a lot of plans for the future of this game, like working cameras, pods you can hide in to avoid guards, smarter AI, a whole new facility layout, changing the morphing to also drop the body, forcing you to creatively dispose them. And best of all, since we are not alone in this facility, I plan to implement monsters which you can morph into, all in the next round.
Now, before we continue with the insane quarterfinals, we just want to let you know that we made an absolutely free course that will teach you everything that you need to know to get started in game development. It will teach you the fundamentals of Unity and C# programming while actually making your very first game, a stylish strategy game with Black Knights, blood magic, village building, and hordes of minions mining for resources. It's the perfect first step into the world of pro game dev. So if seeing these incredible developers build worlds from scratch gets you yearning to bring your own imagination to life, there's no more excuses. You can get the course for free with the link in the description. Alright, without further ado guys, let's continue the competition.
Hey everyone, it's Dio from Cowsins, and this week has been wild. It's been my final exams week in university, so I had to work fast. That's why I chose to use the FPS engine. It gave me a solid starting point and made adapting to the theme of Metamorphosis super easy and straightforward. Here's the core mechanic. When you defeat enemies, you temporarily gain powers based on the enemies you kill. I call this minor metamorphosis. For example, killing a fast enemy might boost your speed. Defeating an explosive enemy gives you explosive bullets. There's even a power that hurts you if you miss a shot, but doubles your damage if you land it. It makes every kill exciting because every action has immediate consequences and benefits for your player. Moreover, when enemies die, they drop souls. These souls serve two purposes: ammo for your weapon and fuel to power the core and unlock major metamorphosis stages. This creates a strategic choice. Do you spend your souls to kill more enemies, or do you feed the core and unlock stronger abilities? Additionally, here's how the major metamorphosis stages work. The base level is your starting point. Then you got the intermediate stage, which unlocks a dash, double jump, and more health. Then there's the final form. It gives you a hook, increased speed, damage, and an enhanced melee attack, and this is how cool it looks. The gameplay is inspired by Doom. Fast-paced and intense, rewarding aggressive strategies. Melee heals you, encouraging risky but rewarding combat. I'm excited about this project's potential and have big plans for the next phase. New stages, enemies, and map upgrades. So wish me luck and let me know what you think about it.
Hello, I am NerdChomp. When I heard the theme was Metamorphosis, my brain immediately went to bugs. But I didn't want to just throw bugs into my game and then call it a day. I wanted to weave that theme into the mechanics of my game. So my game is called Imago, which is the final stage of Metamorphosis. The idea is that you have abilities that go through Metamorphosis instead of the character. You start with 4 bugs. I might add more in the future, but right now it's just 4. And each of these bugs is tied to different movement modes and different abilities. So for example, the grasshopper is tied to jumping and any jumping related ability that's going to be in the game. The goal of each level is to reach the end before time runs out. Your bugs start at weak, making it slow and cumbersome to traverse all the levels, but at the start of every level, you have the opportunity to cocoon either 1, 2, 3, or all 4 of your bugs if you want to. Doing so means that the abilities that are tied to these bugs are disabled for that level. So if you cocoon the grasshopper, then you'll have to complete that level without the ability to jump. But taking that risk has its reward. If you can complete the level without those bugs, the cocoon will transform your bugs and make them stronger, granting you faster and more effective movement abilities. Make it through without jumping, and your jump height will increase for all future levels. The difficulty of the levels will increase, so if you don't cocoon enough, you won't be prepared for those later levels. That's the basic concept, and I have the foundation of that game loop all set up. So right now, that's Imago. The core gameplay loop is in there and it's functioning. The next step is to expand on that loop and to add more variety through obstacles and more abilities. So that's what I will be working on if I make it past round 1.
For Monday, I did nothing and just thought. For Tuesday, this magic system gave me an idea. What if I had a game where the environment dictates what powers you had, metamorphosizing you into the power? So I created a UE4 project, got the place set up with fancy lighting, a vibrant atmosphere, and also applied my cell shader because, I don't know, it goes well. And at the end of the day, look at my luck, stopped working. Wednesday, I redid Tuesday. I also set up this vibrant environment and began the bulk of my coding in order to test what my ideas look like in-game. Standing on the ground will give you a tornado ability, and running into lava will turn you into Lava Man, and you'll be able to throw fire. But I'm starting to feel pretty sick at this point, so I'm gonna call it a day. But don't worry, I'll thug it out. Thursday, I died in bed. I did not, in fact, thug it out. Friday, I tried to force myself to work and kind of fixed up some of the UI and got some bug fixes done. Also finished the environment and set up some boundaries so you can't just walk off the map. Then I threw up 3 more times. I felt way too sick at this point, and I didn't have enough time to finish, so NerdChomp, you win this time. But if you lose the jam, I'll haunt your dreams forever. But anyways, if I didn't die this week, for week 2, I would have added an advanced movement system, enemy drops, an inventory system, and I would have finished this area with new environments and spells. I really didn't do y'all justice, and I wish I could have had more time, but if you want to see me do more cool stuff in my personal game, when I'm not sick, you could find me probably saying something stupid in the comments.
So sadly, Skyline ended up getting too sick, so he couldn't end up submitting his game for week 1 and automatically won't move on to the semifinals, which is a real shame because it looked really promising. That does leave us with 5 devs, of which only 4 can move on. So let's talk. What do we think of LazyTea's game?
LazyTea, I think, was just a great experience. It just had some weird hiccups with the interaction design, in my opinion, was sometimes a bit clunky with like what I have in my open hand, and the build mode was a little bit strange because you cannot build in build mode, you can only deconstruct in build mode, which is odd. LazyMartynas has amazing visuals, really great. Unfortunately, it crashed for me every time I booted it up after playing it for a little bit, so that unfortunately really drags it down for me.
And it's a shame basically that it bugged for you. I got to play the game and it was quite, juicy, good combat, pretty simple. I think there's a lot of potential. Really curious to see where it'll go.
The entire idea of the metamorphosis, the theme interpretation. In this case, it was just the opening cutscene, really. And then after the gameplay, it had kind of nothing to do with it.
I really liked that Ethano had an ending to it. I thought that it had like a good structure.
Wasn't a huge fan of the low poly art style because I feel like I've seen that quite a while. It's using an asset pack from Cincy, I believe.
I thought it looked really nice, but I'm not as familiar with like the Cincy. I was like, oh, this is a good low poly art style, but like you said, it's from an asset pack.
But I do think on the potential meter, that was the highest for me. I think it has Hitman-esque potential, and I think that does sound very cool.
The pixelated filter thing didn't look as good in the devlog, but when I played the game, it was okay.
It was balanced too hard for me and in unfair ways sometimes, and hard to understand sometimes.
I think the main reason for that is that everything, power-ups, level-ups, everything was explained with tiny text, and a lot of it as well. So if he could improve on that, I think that would fix a lot of problems. Because for the rest, it's a pretty solid start.
NerdChomp, great overall. I felt it was really good, but it had a game-breaking bug, which didn't allow me to play through the game. Abilities that you cocoon once get deactivated permanently afterwards, so...
I think the potential was both high and low, because the idea was really cool, but it feels like you would be very limited in designing levels if it's so open to the player what abilities get upgraded over time.
We had to make a hard choice. So what we're going to do is each judge is going to announce one of the semi-finalists until there's 4, and one of you leaves the competition. Okay, so the first semi-finalist for this competition is LazyMartynas.
Yeah!
Congratulations.
Thank you.
I'm sure everyone immediately noticed that, how insanely good it looked. My thalassophobia kicked in immediately. Gameplay was super satisfying for sure.
With that said, Lighthoof Dryden announced the second semi-finalist.
The second semi-finalist to pass into the next round will be NerdChomp.
Awesome.
We really loved your implementation of the theme and how deeply and interestingly it was interconnected with everything. We thought, if anything, we really want to see where this goes.
So the third person to make it into the semifinals will be LazyTea. Congratulations, man. Mechanically already quite deep for such a short development time. We'd love to see where it goes.
The last semi-finalist we're gonna have to announce, and it's gonna be between Ethano and Cowsins. There's so much potential on both sides, and at the same time the games are extremely different, so it's very hard judging. In the end, the judges came to the decision that the fourth and final semi-finalist of this Blackthornprod game dev competition is Cowsins.
I'm extremely surprised that I made it to round 2. I have a lot of plans for the game, so I can get to it. I can add more obstacles, more abilities, and we'll see where it goes.
I gotta admit that the judges' feedback left a bit of a bitter taste, but it was filled with valuable insights that I will for sure take into consideration to improve the game significantly for the next round.
I am personally very scared of LazyTea right now after seeing his game. It's very impressive what he was able to do in a week, and I'm a little scared what he can do in a second week.
I think I'm most worried about NerdChomp's game. Also being told there's some kind of twist coming up this week, so let's just see how that goes. So I got to work adding some automation to the game to help move items and automate making things like ingots, which you're going to need a lot of later on in the game. And I also started working on a couple of new buildings. And that's when it happened. All progress stopped, as it was Christmas and I got the flu. Yeah, my voice still hasn't fully recovered. So I was out of commission and basically did no work on this game for like 2.5 days. It's pretty rough. And during this time, that's when I got the twist from Blackthornprod. I have to incorporate one of the game mechanics from NerdChomp's game. Now, luckily, the idea of cocooning abilities lines up really well with my plans for the player's metamorphosis. Every day, it will offer you 2 cards with different upgrades. Now, you can either take the ability at base value or cocoon it. Now, if an ability is cocooned overnight, the following morning, that ability will have evolved, making it even more powerful. I worked on getting a bunch of new items into the game. For context, these are the items and buildings we had at the end of week 1, and this is what we have after week 2. And just think, double this again, if not more, for week 3. Now, using a combination of these items, you will create a core component. When gifted to the protoform, it undergoes its first stage of metamorphosis. Now, if I do get onto the second week, I'm going to add a lot more content. Even though I couldn't add the new zones and NPCs because, well, I was ill and Christmas, I will be adding not 1, but 2 new zones and 2 bosses this week, just to compensate. I'll also be adding the high-tech tier of buildings and upgrades, and a lot more of the metamorphosis cards for the player. I'll also add a notebook that allows you to actually see what upgrades are available and which ones you have actually unlocked. You'll also discover the protoform's final metamorphosis stage, and see what it is truly capable of, as well as the cost your metamorphosis has had on you.
I started off the second week by doing some much needed optimization. Adding object pooling allowed me to spawn many more objects without causing the game to stutter. I found it frustrating that the most effective way to play the game was by constantly spamming the right mouse button, so I introduced tentacles as a kind of currency. You spend it by performing abilities, but they refresh as time goes on. This actually made a difference in playstyle because the player now had to hide while they were out of tentacles to recharge. Since the map didn't have any places to hide, I quickly placed some shipping containers and a crane. I also added these ramps so enemies would have to come up to the platform instead of spawning randomly on top of it. Around that time, the secret twist was introduced. Mine was to adapt a mechanic from Cowsins. I really liked that in this game you would gain a new ability when metamorphosis happens, so I adapted the same approach, but instead of collecting souls, you would fill the bar by dealing damage to enemies. I made it so the first metamorphosis level allows you to grab enemies from any distance, letting you easily destroy them with a melee attack. Second level gives you ground smash ability, which consumes your entire stock of tentacles but deals a great area of effect damage to enemies. I finished the week off with some polish and added main menu screen at the start of the game. If I was to pass on to the next week, I plan to add a new helicopter enemy, more metamorphosis abilities, and expand on the lore of the game through cinematics.
So before adding new content to the game, I focused on improving key aspects based on the judges' feedback. Despite the second week overlapping with Christmas, I still managed to make some great updates. First, I streamlined the UI by removing unnecessary elements and adjusted colors and sizes for better visibility. Communication with the player was also a weak spot, so now the game pauses and visually explains every new metamorphosis stage when you evolve. Moreover, I revamped the tutorial to make it more interactive. The AI got a major upgrade too. Enemies now spread out from each other and zigzag towards the player, requiring precise aiming instead of randomly shooting at a big mass of spiders. I also added a new damage indicator to show when hits are coming from the back. This just makes the entire game feel more fair and easy to understand. A new difficulty selection system also makes the game accessible to everyone. Now that all the tweaks and modifications are ready, it's time for new metamorphosis stages and enemies. As for the minor metamorphoses, I've added some like the burst metamorphosis and the healing metamorphosis, which heals you over time. This last metamorphosis is unlocked by defeating the healer enemy. As for another enemy incorporations, say hi to this absolutely disgusting mutant cockroach. Alright, all of this is super cool, but the twist is already here. And it seems like I need to add features from LazyTea's game, some like crafting or dangerous enemies. Luckily, I already have many dangerous enemies and I added a few more this week, so I'll just focus on crafting. To integrate this system into the already existing game loop, I decided that enemies will now drop blueprints that you can pick up. You can then unlock new buildings at the core. You can place these buildings holograms anywhere around the map, but to craft them, you actually need to feed them with souls. This crafting mechanic is perfectly integrated into the entire concept of the game, and honestly, it's so much fun to play around with. Finally, I updated the map layout and added a mysterious locked door. If I make it to the next challenge phase, I'll open this mysterious door and unveil what's inside. And I'll also expect centipedes, evolving buildings, and much more.
For round 2, I want to expand on the systems that I already established. I felt that having 4 predetermined bug slots was very limiting. I also found the control scheme unclear and unintuitive. I wanted to simplify this. So I changed it from 4 slots to 3. I made 1 slot reserved for a passive bug ability, and then the 2 other slots are for active abilities that require a button press. I mapped these active abilities to left click and right click, and you can choose which slot to assign the bugs to. And that is when the round 2 twist came into play. I needed to incorporate some of the mechanics from LazyMartynas' game into mine. His game had a lot of crazy tentacle mechanics, which doesn't really fit my game, but he did have a dash in his game, which is perfect. I was planning on adding a dash anyway. I also added a few other bugs and abilities. I wanted to encourage more experimentation and introduce more randomness, so instead of starting out with a predetermined set of bugs, you start out with nothing and you have to rummage for bugs. The bugs you find are random, so you have to weigh your options about which ones you want to keep. You are also able to re-roll the map layout if you don't like what you have, or if you think that it's impossible to complete with your current setup. For the cost of these actions, I decided to make the main currency of the game spare time. Since each level is on a timer, any time left over goes towards your bank of spare time. And that brings me to the narrative of the game. Before there was no narrative at all, but now the player is trying to outrun a blizzard. Having more spare time means you're further away from the blizzard, and the main goal of the game is to save up enough spare time to start Metamorphosis. In your final Imago stage of Metamorphosis, you'll be able to escape the blizzard for good, but you need enough time to reach the Imago stage without the blizzard wiping you out. To do this, you need 10 minutes of spare time. So that's the goal of the game. You'll need to balance what you spend and what you save. Losing a stage doesn't end your run, but it does subtract from your spare time. And if you run out of spare time, the blizzard overtakes you and you lose. If I make it to round 3, I will be adding more bugs, maybe adding some obstacles as well to stop the player, and just polishing up the project in general.
LazyTea, really impressed by the variety of machines he added. Everything's more clear, I feel also.
Yeah, a lot less bugs than unlike.
Exactly, yeah. It's well paced, everything's introduced nice and slowly. The difficulty curve is like spot on, I feel.
For the intro alone, I would almost like LazyMartynas to win the competition.
One thing I thought that he improved on a lot was the metamorphosis more integrated throughout the gameplay. Like that was definitely an improvement. However, I do think it backfired a little bit because the beginning of the game was so slow. Once you die, then you have to like grind through these level 1 enemies again until you can metamorphose. Oh, now I have my ability back. Okay, now I can get... I think Cowsins' game also looks great. I also felt like the game design wants to go one of two ways. Like you either want to have a level design that you're progressing through, or I felt like you wanted to have like it was like turning into a tower defense sort of situation. And I never felt even once kind of like afraid that I was going to lose, you know?
Cowsins' game was very cheesable as well. You could easily, once you unlock double jump, you can easily get up on stuff where enemies just can't get you anymore. And the game becomes even more of a breeze. So.
I really like the new spare time mechanic that you added. It's much less punishing now. When you lose a level, you don't just like, you're not blocked.
Spare time being a currency is a very cool idea for sure. The levels still being cubes with different heights. I was very disappointed when I saw that. You know, the game at the beginning isn't excited to play because it's very slow and you can't really do anything and you're constantly cocooning your stuff to upgrade it later. So you're deliberately not using the fun abilities that would make the game fun. And then when you are at a stage where they're cocooned enough, I can use them now properly, they're actually really strong and the game becomes very easy.
NerdChomp just has to make the environment look less like a game prototype and more like a game.
You would just need to add some trees, bushes, and flowers and stuff.
Yeah, really something there, and make some additions to the level that are also gameplay relevant and unique.
Okay, so we had a very hard decision to make, and we made it. So we're going to be announcing the 2 finalists of the Blackthornprod Game Dev competition.
All right, I am very pleased to announce that the first finalist that we'll be passing on into week 3 is LazyTea.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. We all thought you did a really fantastic job expanding the game, deepening the mechanics, making things a lot clearer in the tutorial and with the controls. Just the amount that you were able to add, especially while being sick and during Christmas, was really, really impressive. Congratulations.
Second finalist of the Blackthornprod Game Dev competition is NerdChomp.
That is completely unexpected.
Not gonna lie, I thought it was over when I saw the other contestants' games.
I'm completely shocked that I made it to round 3. To be honest, I didn't even think I would make it past round 1.
I feel with our 2 games, it's a battle between quality and quantity. NerdChomp has the quality with some really interesting game mechanics, whereas I have just a lot of content.
I think LazyTea's game is very strong. He has a very cohesive art style, his writing is great. I think the one area he might struggle in is the complications with his controls, but still, it'll be very tough to beat him.
Since I've received some really supportive feedback from both the other contestants and the judges, I can confirm that Stranded will be coming to Steam. Who knows, it might be out now. And if it's not out yet, give it a wishlist. Unfortunately, I didn't have a massive amount of time this week to work on the game, so I've not met all the milestones I set from stage 2. However, I started out by making 2 new zones, the Frozen Wastes and the Swamps. The Swamp Zone is home to some merchants that sell you key items such as a summoning skull and coins. The skull is used in the Frozen Waste Zone to start the Trial of Strength. You fight an even stronger wave of enemies, but it rewards you very handsomely if you complete it. However, it does take a minute and a half to complete, minimum, so you need to make sure you're doing this at the start of the day so that you can still defend the protoform at night. Now, the coins that you can get from the gold merchant, you also get through leveling up. Crafting any item or killing an enemy grants you XP. And when you level up, you get coins. When either you or the protoform dies, you can spend these coins to buy permanent upgrades for your character, like extending the duration of the day phase, allowing you to build more of your factory, or slow down the spawn rate of enemies so that you're not getting completely overwhelmed as quickly as night progresses. There's also 2 new playable characters. The Engineer, that starts the game with multiple quarries and automation gear to kickstart your factory building, and the Gunsmith, that starts the game with a shotgun, and plenty of ammo to keep you safe for the first few nights. I also plan to add a few more classes for the final release on Steam as well. Now for the Protoform evolution. The initial evolution now attacks enemies, so you're incentivized to get that initial upgrade quickly so it can help you in defending. And the final evolution of the Protoform is also here. They evolve fully and grant you your freedom as promised. This has been a super fun, albeit extremely stressful experience. And I'm super excited to see what NerdChomp has come up with as well, so I'll see you in the dev meeting.
I have made a Steam page for Imago, so you can go wishlist the game if you want. I'm going to expand on this core concept. I plan on adding a few more environments, and I might restructure some things about the game. So if you want to follow that, I will probably make more videos about it on my YouTube channel. For my game, the two main criticisms for round 2, they were saying that it looked a little too prototypey, and then gameplay-wise, the player is pretty discouraged from changing bugs once they had invested in them through cocooning. For the visuals, luckily I am in Unreal, and Unreal has Quixel Megascans, so I was happy to make use of those. I got rid of the border around the level, I added some mountains in the backdrop, added some fog effects to make it more atmospheric, and I changed the tiles that I was using for the level, so they're not just straight up cubes anymore, they're actually meshes. For the gameplay, well, the first thing I fixed was jumping over ledges. I noticed that judges were struggling with that a little bit. Now when you jump, it like sort of auto jumps you over the ledge. But addressing the strategy of the bugs, a few people suggested adding an inventory so that you could stash your bugs and save them for later and kind of pick and choose which bugs you want to use. That was an interesting idea, but I decided to go a different way. Since my game is set in a desolate blizzard, I thought it was fitting to have the bugs be able to die. So every bug has a lifespan, and when their lifespan runs out, they die and you lose their abilities. And this means you need to manage their lifespans and how long they're going to live and what bugs you want to replace them with. It makes the whole thing a lot more interesting, and it forces you to use new bugs. I also decided to make the rummaging mechanic automatic at the beginning of every round, and when you rummage, you get the choice of 2 bugs instead of 1, and the cost of the bug depends on the stats that the bug has. And that's when the round 3 twist came into play. LazyTea and I came up with one-word themes for each other, and we'd have to incorporate them into our game. The word that he gave to me was flight. And to be honest, that was a very easy word for me. I could easily just add another bug that can fly, but I already have a bug that can fly, and I felt like in round 2 I sort of phoned in the twist a little bit, so I wanted to get a little more creative in round 3. So what I did for round 3 with flight is I added a fight or flight mechanic. So there will be these predator events that randomly happen, and what that means is a predator is coming to eat one of your bugs, and you have the choice to either fight the predator and defend your bug, or to run away and let your bug get eaten. Fighting the predator will cost time, and there is a chance that you fail anyway. But the flight option, running away, means you're guaranteed to lose the bug, but you don't waste any time, and you're not allowed to rummage or cocoon anything. You have to go straight into the next level. I did still want to maintain some of the progression and investing in the bugs that was present in round 2. It almost felt like there's no point in cocooning them anymore, because cocooning is a lot less valuable now. So what I did was I added these herbs that you can find when you rummage, and when you feed them to your bugs, it increases their lifespan. So it gives the player a little choice to invest in their bugs a little more, if they do want to cocoon and kind of upgrade a bug as they go. And another way that I encouraged bug variety is by adding these iced platforms. And what that means is the wall of the platform and the ledge of the platform is unwebbable, so you can't use the silkworm or the spider, and it's unclimbable with the ant, because I was getting the sense that the silkworm and the spider were a little overpowered, so I wanted to kind of nerf them a little bit. And I also got these bear traps in, so scattered across the level there will be bear traps, and if you step on them, then you have to respawn from the beginning of the level.
LazyTea did an absolutely Herculean effort in terms of like the amount of content that he added to the game. Also, I think this game is going to do really well when he releases it. I wanted to see more depth added rather than more width.
And that also kind of brings us into feedback, like how well was our feedback addressed, and I just gotta say, man, LazyTea dropped the ball. I've been telling him, please just improve what's there. You don't need to add more content than is already there, and he just went the other way.
I did go to like the north and insert the skull there and started the ritual, which was pretty cool. It felt like, as I was playing it, like a really solid gameplay loop, and that worked really nicely for me.
I was having so much fun like trying to put everything together and make a really optimized thing. And then every time I was like, this frickin' night phase. Whereas NerdChomp's game, initially I had less fun with it than some of the other ones, but I think the fun factor has really been added. Like there's a lot more juice now. It feels more, I feel more pulled in certain directions. Are there issues? Yes. There are still balance issues. The RNG is cruel. You can easily get into kind of a death spiral as the levels get harder.
After finishing the game, I watched the devlog and then I realized, oh wait, there's a fight or flight mechanic. I did not encounter that once in my my play.
It happened all the time to me. Wow.
I did not
get
get it once.
Totally different playthrough than I did.
Yeah.
It's like a little too random maybe.
For me, like the game was well balanced. I had to play it like 2 or 3 times to win, which is probably what you want.
Adding the lifespan was crazy, was huge. That was a big game changer. Though I will say, still allowing for me to use herbs on bugs to keep them just made me look for herbs and still keep the same bugs when I got them, like the good ones. Not that much really changed at the end of the day.
The snow and the fog for me was really, really beautiful. The addition of the traps and the ice walls really adds like a new layer of challenge.
NerdChomp improved visuals greatly, but I did take into consideration that the UI in NerdChomp's game still looks kind of prototypey. So
right. Without further ado, one by one, each judge is going to say who he voted for. Jan, who do you want to win?
These choices are of course never easy, but for me it is NerdChomp.
Awesome, thank you.
The personal enjoyment that I got out of the game, it was a really well-rounded and creative little game. You proved why you are right to be in the finals.
I'm gonna go next. So the game that I'm voting for to win this competition is LazyTea. I love the open-ended feeling of it. I also like a little bit more how he incorporates the metamorphosis, all the crafting and just the variety.
Alright, so my vote goes towards NerdChomp's game. Man, just absolutely love the new artwork. Really nice atmosphere. New lifespan mechanic that forces you to have to like change builds all the time. That's something I really love.
Okay, my 4th vote. I'm gonna make it a tie. It's LazyTea. Yeah, it felt like such a finished project already. I'd say like balancing wise, there were still some problems, but I'd say that's the same for NerdChomp's game. So those kind of balanced each other out.
Dryden, the terrible task of announcing who won $3,000, who won the 4th Blackthornprod game dev competition.
So first I want to say both games absolutely phenomenal experiences, and what you've managed to create in just 3 weeks, I'm mind blown by everything. So in the end, my vote goes to NerdChomp.
Congrats.
I thought the ability to pull the emotion out of the mechanics and integrate it with the entire aesthetic of the game blew me away. So
kind. Obviously, LazyTea, your game was amazing too. I got a chance to play, and I was also blown away with how much content was in it. So good job there.
Your mechanics are just so interesting. It was just one of those where I'm playing it, I'm just like, oh, that's cool, like constantly. Really well done. Really well done.
Brilliant work from both of you guys. This was another insane game dev competition, and there's more in the making. So make sure to subscribe and like the video so you don't miss the future ones. All right, we'll see you soon. Cheers.